Hey y'all, it's Drew, and it has been a really rough month, but today I wanted to talk about ownership in the television space. So, as you know from my last video, I was focused on everything Black Lives Matter, and today I kind of wanted to continue that conversation a little bit by looking at the space that we're in as television writers and who owns that space. So, I first asked myself how many Black-owned TV stations there were out there. But then as I started to do the research on that, I really looked at the larger picture and the larger question that kept coming to mind, which was who actually owns the media? So what I found out was kind of crazy because there are 4 companies that own 90% of the world's media. So the top 4 media conglomerates are Comcast, AT&T, Disney, and Fox. Comcast, which owns NBC, MSNBC, Telemundo, Universal Pictures. Disney, which owns ABC, 21st Century Fox, Hulu, Pixar, and Marvel. AT&T, which owns CNN, Warner Media, and HBO. And Fox, which owns Fox News, Wall Street Journal, and the New York Post. And then honorable mention to National Amusements, which I had never heard of. They own Paramount Pictures, BET, Viacom, and MTV. So it's no secret that none of these companies are Black owned. And matter of fact, most of these companies have generational wealth that has been passed down for years. So we are way behind on the buying TV game. So why is this important? Because if the media controls what we see, then they also control what we consume. So it's important to know who owns what's being broadcast to us. So fast forward to a few days ago. Byron Allen, a Black TV producer, comedian, and owner of Entertainment Studios Network, and most notably he owns the Weather Channel, he settled a dispute with the media conglomerate Comcast. In the dispute, he claimed that he was racially discriminated against after Comcast refused to offer 7 of his TV channels in their cable bundles because he was Black. He claimed that Comcast had given slots to lesser-known channels produced by white-owned companies. The case ultimately settled, and he got larger distribution for the Weather Channel, and he got 3 out of the 7 channels to be on Comcast's network. But in the original lawsuit, Byron Allen was seeking $20 billion with a B dollars. Okay, now why is this important? If Byron Allen had gotten what he was originally asking for, which was $20 billion with a B, $20 billion, he would have ultimately been one of the first billionaires to actually be in the arena of those other billionaires who are non-Black who could own media. It's also important to note that he alleged that a Comcast executive said that we're not trying to create any more Bob Johnsons. And if you know Bob Johnson, he was the founder of BET. So he ultimately was the first Black billionaire to own a television network. Johnson ultimately sold his rights to BET over to Viacom. So now BET is no longer Black owned. So aside from Bob Johnson, Bill Cosby also tried to make a play at buying NBC from GE back in the 90s. He couldn't do it because at the time he didn't have enough money. But fast forward to 2015 when all of his sexual assault charges were coming out, and he was also making a play at that time to rebuy NBC because then he had the cash to do it. So it was believed that Cosby not only wanted to buy NBC because his shows were on NBC, but also he wanted to change how Black people were depicted on NBC. And he wanted to curb a little bit of the violence that was being shown in Black communities. Now, if he was able to do that, he also would have been one of the very few Black billionaires that was catapulted into that status of somebody who could own media. So that being said, I went back to my original question of who owned Black networks. And I found only 8. TV One, which is owned by Kathy Hughes. OWN, which is owned by Oprah. Revolt, which is owned by Diddy. Aspire TV, which is owned by Magic Johnson. Impact Network, which is the largest faith-based network, and that's owned by Bishop Wayne T. and Dr. Beverly Jackson. Soul of South Network, which is owned by Edwin Advent, Carl McCaskill, and Larry Morton. The Dream Network, which is owned by Chester Jones III. And Afro TV or Afro Entertainment, which is owned by, and I hope I'm not butchering his name, Yves Belanja. So out of all the television companies and the networks out there, we only own 8 TV networks. We own such a small percentage of what is being consumed and what is being shown to us on a regular basis. And that's something that I think that at this stage, just as writers working in television, we need to be thinking about now. Just the idea of ownership in general is very daunting. Let's think of it as real estate, okay? Even when you own a house, you still have to pay property taxes on the house. So you don't even really own the land that you're on unless you're paying taxes to the government. So I just really started thinking about what is ownership, what is freedom, what does that really look like? So I kind of just wanted to bring it back to me as a writer and you guys as writers, what you can do. And a lot of these owners who own Comcast and AT&T, like, and have this generational wealth, they started with other products that really had nothing to do with television. But the idea is that they started with some type of product. And so you have to look at yourself almost as a commodity. What is the product that you're trying to sell? And your product, which is in here, and what you put on the paper is your intellectual property. What we have in here can be purchased and sold. It's not just important to think about us selling a product and us pitching our ideas to these different networks. It's also important for us to think about how we can own a piece of what we create. And there are so many places for content now. We are at a really strong advantage. So as we write our scripts and we're getting through this period of uncertainty, I just think it's important for us to also be really thinking about the larger picture of ownership, who we're writing for and what we're writing about, because that has the legs to really be passed on for generations, and not just in what people are seeing, but also in what we can give to our children. So even if you're thinking about these TV networks, these larger media conglomerates, or these TV studios, it's important to realize that it really does start with you. I think it's definitely something that is doable and it's accessible no matter what we are told or what's fed to us. We are in a place where we can really change this system and we can become the gatekeepers. And I think that if we are looking at ourselves as the gatekeepers instead of looking outside of it, can completely change the mindset and can completely motivate us and get us in that space where we are in those billionaire seats and we have stakes and vested interest in these companies. But so I know I talk a lot about being an assistant on this channel, and I talk about like the struggle and the things that you're doing to get through and to move your way up to the top. But let's always just keep that larger picture in mind and always be thinking bigger about what we want to do and who we want to become, because those thoughts, they start with us and they can go on our page, but they can also change the world. So anyway, that's all I got for you today, guys. And remember, if you are going from home to Hollywood, you got this. Talk to you guys later.